Myself, Ketan M. Patel, from Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Technical Education and Research Center, Navsari, Electrical Engineering Department. Subject name is Disaster Management, third year, fifth semester. Chapter number 2, Types, Trends, Causes, Consequences, and Control of Disasters. Okay, syllabus content. First is different types of floods, various causes of floods, ill effects of floods, method of flood control or flood mitigations, flood forecasting and warning in India, general safety precautions during flood. Okay. First is different types of floods. Okay. First is aerial rainfall related flood, riverine flood, estuarine and coastal flood, urban flooding. Okay. First is aerial rainfall related flood. Okay. Flood can happen on flat or low-lying area when the ground is saturated and water either cannot run off or cannot run off quickly enough to stop accumulating. These may be followed by a river flood as water moves away from the floodplain into local rivers and streams. Flood can also occur if water falls on an impermeable surface such as concrete, paving or frozen ground and cannot rapidly dissipate into the ground. Localized heavy rain from a series of storms moving over the same area can cause aerial flash flooding when the rate of rainfall exceeds the drainage capacity of the area. When this occurs on tilted fields, it can result in a muddy flood where sediments are picked up by runoff on carried as suspended matter or bed load. Okay. Second is riverine flood. River or Ramla flows may rise to flood levels at different rates from a few minutes or several weeks, depending on the types of river or Ramla and source of the increased flow. Slow rising floods must commonly occur in large rivers with large catchment area. The increase in flow may be result of sustained rainfall, rapid snow melt, monsoons or tropical cyclones. Localized flooding may be caused or exacerbated by drainage obstructions such as landslides, ice or debris. Rapid flooding events including flash floods more often occur on smaller rivers with steep valleys, rivers that flow for much of their length over impermeable terrain or ramblas. The cause may be localized convective perceptions, intense thunderstorms, or sudden release from an upstream impoundment created behind a dam, landslide, or glacier. Dam building bewars can flood low-lying urban and rural area, occasionally causing some damages. Third one is estuarine and coastal flood. Estuarine means estuary is the place in the wake where a tide and a river current meet. Okay, so flooding in estuaries is commonly caused by combination of sea tidal surges caused by winds and low barometric pressures, and they may be exacerbated by high upstream river flow. Coastal area may be flooded by storm events at sea, resulting in waves overtopping defenses or in severe caused by tsunami or tropical cyclone. Storm surge from either a tropical cyclone or an extratropical cyclone falls within this category. Fourth one is urban flooding. Urban flooding is the inadvertence of land of or property in a built environment, particularly in a more densely populated area. caused by rainfall overwhelming the capacity of drainage systems, such as storm sewers, although sometimes triggered by events such as floods, flooding, or some somehow snow melt. Okay, urban flooding is a condition characterized by its repetitive and seismic impacts on communities that can happen regardless of whether or not affected communities are located within formally designed floodplains or nearby any body of water. There are several ways in which stormwater enters properties, backup through sewer pipes, toilets, and sinks into buildings, seepage through building walls and floors, the accumulations of water on property and public rights of way, and the overflow from water bodies such as rivers and lakes. So these are the all is different types of floods. Next is see the different types of figure like a flood advisory, area flood, river flood, etc. Okay, this now next is various causes of flood. Uh, Primarily, all floods are due to the surface runoff. Actually, the floods are the results of a favorable combinations of perceptions and the characteristic of the watershed. The causes of flooding in all the major river systems are: first is intense rainfall, topography of the catchment, sedimentations of rivers and reservoirs, obstructions of rivers and reservoirs, failure of dam, failure of river embankment, inadequate cross drainage works, and contraction of waterway. Okay, so now first is intense rainfall. In intense rainfall can occur only over a comparatively small area. Whenever such a perceptions burst over a small watershed, it results in a high surface runoff, which reaches the main channel faster than it can be discharged, flooding the low-lying area along the stream. The seriousness of the flood will depend upon the following factors: the intensity and duration of perceptions. Like a first is surface slope of the watershed, and second is nature of the surface soil and covering vegetations. The intense perception, sometimes also known as cloud burst. If the rainfall is very heavy and the storm duration is longer, the resulting surface runoff will be more, causing flood-like situations. Second one is topography of the catchment. For mountain regions, the relations of intensity of rainfall and slope of the surface have been found to have a good relationship. The same intensity of rainfall produces more discharge in a mountains region and plain area. This shape of the catchment also affect the surface runoff and flood. For a fan-shaped catchment, the time of concentrations will be less and hence the peak flow will be more. But in case of fund rift type catchment of the same area and some storm, time of concentrations will be more. All the tribute does not reach the stream at the same time. Thus the peak flow will be comparatively less. The more previous the soil, the greater is its water retention power, and longer the period of saturation, resulting in lesser floods. Okay. Third one is sedimentations of rivers and reservoirs. If the top soil layer in the catchment area is low and the vegetation covers is less, the tributaries flowing through such areas carry heavy sedimented load. This sedimented load is deposited in the river bed and the reservoir in which the river merges. Thus, the cross section of the river becomes shallow, resulting in overtopping of water during heavy rains. Due to silaces in reservoirs, the storage capacity of the reservoirs decreases, resulting in flooding of the downstream area. Okay. Next one is obstruction in the river flow. Sometimes due to heavy landslides in the river, the natural flow of water is obstructed, resulting in flood situations on the upstream of the river. When the obstructions in the river are removed due to heavy water pressure accumulated on the upstream, flooding is caused on the downstream of the river. Next one is failure of dam. A dam is constructed to store huge quantity of water in the reservoir created on the upstream of the dam. Due to the failure of the dam, a large quantity of water stored in the reservoir instantly released, causing flood in the downstream of the dam. A dam may fail due to the following reasons like piping, erosions, foundation failure, earthquake, etc. Okay. The flood due to failure of the dam is called flash flood. This flash flood starts suddenly with tremendous velocity and depth. The disaster management or mitigations of which become virtually impossible. For example, like a failure of Machu Dam in Morbi in Gujarat, okay, in 1979. Okay. Next one is failure of river embankment. Sometimes the river embankment may fail due to the gradual erosions by flowing water, resulting in flowing the flood water in the surrounding area and flooding. Next is inadequate cross drainage works. Sometimes all the crossing of canal and river, it may be required to pass the river below the canal. By constructing adequate, due to the construction of an adequate, the depth of the flow is reduced. Thus, during the high flood, water level may rise on the upside and may submerge the surrounding area. And last is construction of waterway. Due to the construction of railway or highway bridge across the river, the natural waterway of river is contracted due to the bridge piers and abutments. Thus, water rises on the upside due to the insufficient passage, and the upstream area may get flooded. Okay, so these are the various causes of floods. Okay, next is ill effects of floods. The ill effects of floods can be classified into the following three groups. First is inundance of low-lying areas. Second is erosions of river banks, and third one is change of river course. First is the following factors may cause the inundations of low-lying areas, like excessive runoff, okay, presence of obstructions in the stream, okay, inadequate waterway due to the rail, road, and canal crossing, okay, congestion of confluences, tides resisting flood flows, etc. Second one is erosions of river banks. The fast flowing current may be it away the banks, form easily erodible soil, and thus may affect vast stretches of agriculture land. Okay. Third one is change in river courses. The change in the course of the river may develop due to the following reasons. Like first is due to the high velocity of the river water. Second is due to the abrupt variations in the bed gradient and heavy sedimentary charge. Third one is due to the oscillatory bed of the river. In change in river courses, like a flood damage. Flood damage can be classified into two groups. First is direct damage and second is indirect damage. First is direct damage. It implies damage due to physical contact with water. For example, erosion of agricultural land, loss of human life and animals, loss of property, breach of road, canal, ponds, etc. Loss of forest and wildlife. In indirect damages, in this case, flood water does not come in direct contact of the property, but causes damage by interruption and other causes. Like example, first is a labor is put out of employment or work due to submerge of the factory. School and colleges remains closed for few days due to the flood. Due to interruption of transportation service, business industry is So this is the all types of effects of floods. Next is methods of flood control or flood mitigations. Okay. A flood is relatively high stage of river which is usually accompanied by overtopping of the natural bank of the river in a particular ridge. The flood occurs because of heavy rain or melting of snow when the discharge in the river is so high that is the natural cross section is unable to contain it. Flood control is required to reduce the flood damage. Flood control is also known as flood management. In India, about 40 mhl of land is flood prone, which is about 12% of the total geographical area of 320 mh. There are two types of measures to mitigate the flood disasters. First is structural mitigations measures. And the structural mitigation measures are first is storage reservoirs like detections and retarding. Second is levees, flood walls, channel improvement works, diversions of flood water to floodways, construction of high earth platforms, sluices, and second is non-structural mitigation measures. First is storage reservoirs. The function of flood control reservoir is to store a portion of the flood so as to minimize the peak flood is the point to be protected. In an ideal case, the reservoir is situated immediately upstream from the protected area and is operated to cut off the flood peak. The reservoir is operated to reduce the discharge on the downstream to a safe rate of flow so that it does not exceed the safe carrying capacity of the channel downstream. All flow greater than that of the safe rate of flow is stored in the reservoir. When the rainflow drop below this safe rate, stored wet water is released to downstream channel. Okay. In these types, the flood control reservoirs, first is detention reservoirs like storage reservoirs, and second is retarding reservoirs. In detention reservoirs is provided with gate sluiceways and spillways which can be operated as and when required. A detention reservoir is similar to an ordinary conservation reservoir except that the former has a comparatively large sluiceway capacity. It permits rapid drawdown in advance of flood or just after it. In retarding reservoirs, a retarding reservoir is provided with ungated spillways and sluiceways which automatically regulate the outflow from the dam depending upon the water level of the reservoir. The arrangement usually consists of a large ungated spillway or one or more ungated sluiceways. Okay. These are the different types of methods of control, flood control or flood mitigations. This is the catchment area. Okay, it's a large area of catchment area. This is the different types of walls or like leaves. Okay. Second is leaves. Leaves, or we can say embankments. Leaves is an earth embankment. It is the sort of an earthen dam constructed along the river. In general, leaves should satisfy the criteria of earth dam. The construction of leaves is more common than flood wall, as it is a more economical and convenient. The section of generally homogeneous because suitable core material is rarely available. The material is placed in the layer and properly compacted. As far as possible, there should be very few curves in their alignment. Earth embankment have the following advantages. Like first is there are easy to construct parallel to river banks by available earth. Initial cost of construction is less. They prevent overflowing the banks. Maintenance is easy. It increases the storage capacity of the river. drawback of earth embankment. First is instead of flood disaster mitigations, sometimes it suddenly creates catastrophic flood, exactly like temporary flood, like a flash flood, when embankment fails during high stage. During flood time, round the clock maintenance is very much essential against failure. Due to the increase of river capacity, velocity decreases, hence sediments flowing along with floodwater are deposited in the bed, thereby depth of the river bed goes on decreasing with the time. Flood walls. Flood walls are used in developed area where it is difficult to obtain enough land and construction of leaves. Because of flat slopes, leaves require a very large base width. A flood wall is a sort of gravity dam constructed along the river. Flood walls are designed to withstand the hydrostatic pressures like gravity dams. The full uplift pressure should be considered. Generally, the sections is designed for no tension. Some typical flood walls are shown in the figure. These are the different types of wall. Okay. These are also different types of wall near to the river. Okay, next one is flood forecasting and warning in India. Flood forecasting or warning, if could be conveyed earlier, disaster due to the probable flood can be minimized to a great extent. Temporary evacuation of persons and shifting the important property to safe places could be done before the flood arrives. Once the flood occurs, the normal activities of the society are badly disrupted with immense losses. Therefore, flood forecasting is a real necessity to minimize the flood havoc. In India, the 7 flood forecasting units operating at New Delhi, Guwahati, Jalpaiguri, Patna, Bhubaneswar, Surat and Lucknow. There are another 22 substations and they have been functioning to give timely warning of floods in some major rivers. For the forecasting the flood, historical data of the river like a stream flood record, stage discharge relationship, rainfall runoff relationship are essential. A communication network is essential between the control room with gauge stations. Sometimes telephonic communicating lines fail during heavy storms, so wireless network become essential. For forecasting of flood magnitude is evaluated by the following methods. First is rainfall runoff relationship, unit hydrograph like UH, synthetic unit hydrograph SUH, flood routing model both hydrological and hydraulic, and fifth is stage discharge relationship. Flood forecasting FF enable us to be forward as to when the river is going to use its floodplain, to what extent and for how long. The forecast of a flood may be for the water level or stage forecast, discharge like a flood forecast, an area likely to be submerged at various points, particular stations at a specific time. Of all the non-structural measures for FM which rely on the modifications of susceptibility to flood damage, the one which is paying sustained attention of the planners and acceptance of the public is flood forecasting and warning. A nationwide flood forecasting and warning system covering major interstate rivers has been established by Central Water Commissions (CWC). The system under Central Water Commissions is often supplemented by the states that makes arrangement for advance warning at all other stations strategically important to them. The Central Water Commission also extends FF. FF means flood forecasting services to such stations as the request of the states concerned, with reliable advance information warning about implement flooding, floods, loss of life and property can be reduced to a considerable extent. People, cattle, and valuable assets can be shifted in advance to suffer place. So these are the all types of flood forecasting and warning system in India. Now, general safety precautions during flood. What to do before a flood? To prepare for a flood, you should avoid building in a flood prone area unless you elevate and reinforce your home. Elevate the furnace, water heater, and electric panel if susceptible to flooding. Install check valves in sewer trap to prevent floodwater from backing up into the drain of your home. Contact community officials to find out if they are planning to construct barriers like leaves, beams, and flood walls to stop floodwater from entering the homes in your area. Seal the walls in your basement with waterproofing compounds to avoid seeps. Turn around, don't drown. Rapid flowing streams or ditches can sweep you off your feet and your vehicle downstream. Remain alert if you live in flood-prone area. Move to higher ground if flooding threatens. Use caution at night. Stay out flooded areas. Water may still be rising and very swift. Do not allow children to play in or around flowing water. Floods waters can hide rocks, trees, and debris. Next is basic safety precautions to be taken. Listen to radio, TV for the latest weather bulletins and flood warnings. Pass on the information to the others. Make the family emergency kit, which should include a portable radio, transistors, torch, spare batteries, a first aid box, along with essential medicines, ORS, dry food items, drinking water, matchbox, candles, and other essential items. Keep hurricane lamp, ropes, rubber tubes, umbrella, and bamboo sticks in your house. This could be useful. Keep your cash, jewelry, valuables, important documents, etc. in a safe place. If there is a flood, move along with family members and cattle to safe area like a relief camp, evacuation centers, elevated grounds where you can take shelter. Turn off power and gas connections before leaving your house. And during flood, don't enter into flood water. It could be dangerous. Don't allow children to play in near flood water. Stay away from sewerage line, gutter, drainage, culverts, etc. Be careful of snakes. Snake bites are common during this type of floods. Stay away from electric poles and fallen power lines to avoid electrocutions. Don't use wet electrical appliances. Get them checked before use. Eat freshly cooked and dry food. Always keep your food covered. Use boiled and filtered drinking water. Keep all drains, gutters near your house clean. Water can breed water-borne diseases. In case of sickness, seek medical assistance. Use bleaching powder and lime to disinfect the surroundings. Okay, so these are the various important precautions during the flood. So this is the general safety precautions during flood. Okay, thank you.